More tales from San Diego as Adam Mares covers Nuggets training camp. Andre Miller speaks to the media, the new coach of the Grand Rapid Gold and Nuggets legend, I'm willing to say.
Me too.
And we'll talk about what the Nuggets front office looks like under Calvin Booth now that he's settled in. All that and more on Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. I'm Matt Moore, senior NBA writer for the Action Network, joined by Batman Adam Mares, who just leapt onto screen after doing something off screen in his San Diego hotel room as he continues to cover Nuggets training camp. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. We're free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, where you can join the show and join folks like Alex and Miroslav and Kelvin and Travis and all sorts of folks hanging out with us in the chat on a Friday. Glad to have you with us. Hope your week has been great. Hope your weekend will be better. We're going to talk today about what Adam has heard and learned from Nuggets training camp after a full 4 days as they wrap up training camp here in the next couple of days. In San Diego, getting ready for their first preseason game back in Denver. We'll talk about what the new Nuggets front office has looked like and what shape it's taken now with a couple of months for Calvin Booth to form it into what he thinks it should be. And we'll talk about Andre Miller, the new coach of the Grand Rapids Gold, who spoke with the media yesterday, including Adam, and get his thoughts on the direction of the team, what it means for the franchise to have Andre Miller back in an official capacity, all that and more on today's show. Adam, I have to ask you, how are the tacos in San Diego? Everyone says the tacos are excellent there.
I had them one day, unimpressed.
Not big. Are you a fish taco guy?
No, I mean a little bit. I eat every food, man. I eat every food. Fish tacos are okay.
You're an omnivore? Can you?
Yeah.
Can you please?
We have had some good food though out here. I gotta say, we have had some good food.
Can you please get my son to be more like that? My son has eaten a hot dog for dinner every day, every day for 7 years. 7 years. I've tried everything.
Didn't I? I thought I made this before, but apparently everybody saw me. I thought I made it right in time, but apparently I was like a second too late.
You were definitely jumping into frame right as it started, which was I'm gonna gif it when the show comes out on the YouTubes. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. Yesterday, Jeff Green spoke with the media, as well as DeAndre Jordan spoke as well.
No, Bruce Brown.
Bruce Brown spoke with the media. Okay, so the big question here is, and I think today will probably be the final one to kind of answer this, but what has been your overall impression of training camp through these first couple of days? The vibes are good. Do you think that's meaningful? Do you think that they've gotten productive work done? What's the general sense that you've gotten as far as how training camp has gone for the Nuggets?
So, Matt, we always look at these things as what's your sort of read on the situation and how big of a deal do you think it is? I feel like I have a pretty strong read on the situation, and I feel like it's a pretty big deal that this team seems very comfortable, very confident, very excited with what they have. But just that, like I've said this a bunch, but it's a very veteran group. And I think it's a noticeable change from years past with just how veteran this group is, including guys like Bruce Brown and Jeff Green. And then there's just some excitement, like I said, growing around the team. This is a weird year in that in years past, first team, second team, I think first team has always been sort of like head and shoulders above the other groups because you have Jokic. But second team, third team, some questions. You get into camp. I feel like there's a very defined pecking order. The first team is the best 5-man unit at camp. The second team is the second best 5-man unit at camp. The third team is the third best. Like, it's a very clear tiers between your first, second, third. And, one of the things, it was funny talking to Jeff Green yesterday because he talked for 10 minutes and he basically lied for 10 minutes. Oh, yeah, we're dominating. I'm dunking on people, all this or that. And then at the end, he was like, no, but for real, the first units looked really great. They kind of dominated the pickups, this or that. I started asking around different people like, hey, how's it looked? And I'm told a story that, they're going to scrimmage today in front of all the media. So I'm going to get a chance to actually watch these scrimmages. But I was told yesterday that the first unit had stretches during their scrimmaging where they were just unstoppable. There was nothing anybody can do. And things were just starting to click, I think, for the first time. So I think it's exciting. Like talking to some guys, they're like, hey man, you watch this first unit and you see it. They're a dominant first group.
Yeah, it's tough because I'm always kind of married to the idea that your expectations for preseason have to be wrong. It's just so very rare that like this is going to be the best starting unit in the NBA, and it actually winds up being that just because basketball's random at points. To me, this should be the best scoring starting lineup in the league. I really don't know of one that's better. I really don't. I don't honestly know of any team that has as much firepower in the starting unit when you combine the ability to generate open shots, skill set, efficiency, the works. Like, I have a hard time. My inclination is to dampen expectations, and I can't with this team. They're just too talented.
Well, here's what's funny though, Matt. I will say that it hasn't been like a declarative training camp. You know, sometimes you get in there like we're winning the title or we're this or that. There's been like a weird quiet confidence of like, hey, we really like the potential with this group. We'll see what happens, but like we just really like and it's all about the process from here, which is funny because to me that's almost like more confident. Not the need to come out and say, hey, we're this thing, we're this or that. It's just like, hey, this team's pretty special, man. We got something going on here.
We talked about this the other day, but it just reminds me a lot of that Bucks team. That was like the whole Malone thing of don't talk about it, be about it. Right. It's really important to basically just keep your head down and just play the game that's in front of you, work on the things that you want to work on, improve in the ways that are meaningful, hope that you get favorable injury luck, and see where you're at in 6 months. Like, once I started to really think about it in those terms of the NBA playoffs start in 6 months, a half of a year goes by before you get a chance to really test whether this team can win a title. Right. There's just like a lot of work to be done then. And not all of it is work that goes towards winning the title. A lot of it is just like getting through, like just got to get through. Did Bruce Brown say anything of note yesterday? Because I know you've been big on him in general.
I don't know if he had anything too big of note here. Let me see here. You know, one of the running themes, again, being a veteran group, but also just the culture here. One of his lines was, everybody is cool here. Everybody talks to everybody. Not much is going on outside of basketball. Which again, just reiterating, but he loves that. He keeps saying like, guys, I'm a low key guy. I don't like.
Well, no, that's the thing is like, my read on that is not bad, Adam. My read on that is it's bad for Brooklyn. That's my read on that. Is like there's a subtext there of not people don't have a lot of things going on off the court, unlike the boardroom and Kyrie's chemtrails support group, like whatever it is that's going on. Like Denver's just like a pro, and that I will say it'll be interesting to see how Calvin wants to shape the team. We'll get to that in the second segment. To me, that's like an interesting carryover from a big priority for Tim Connelly. Was he and Malone really tried to, their culture was, we're going to be close to each other. We're going to have like strong relationships and we're going to be all about basketball. That's our thing. Is if you really love to play and you love to work, Denver is where you want to be.
I kind of get the sense that there's a lot of guys that just love basketball on this team, which is great. Yeah. And, two other little anecdotes. Bruce Brown, he said that he loves to he was asked, would you rather screen for Jokic in pick and roll or Jokic screen for you? And he said, easily, I would rather screen for Jokic, which I find just funny. Like that's the backwards way of doing things, but it's also, I think, both guys' preferred way of doing things. So it's kind of interesting. And he just talked about how he takes a lot of pride in being a guy that doesn't have to have a defined role. I know he's talked about that a lot, but he kind of expounded on it saying, I take pride in coach can put me in any situation with any unit and I'll figure out what it is that's needed in that group and then do it. Man.
That's like the exact answer you want to hear from Bruce Brown. Like just, his versatility and the fact that he recognizes that's his role. It's just really good that he's got the kind of mindset of that his value in the NBA is built off of that versatility. That's so healthy and it's so good for his career. And
He's one of the big winners, I would say, of training camp this week. I know it's weird to do winners and losers of a training camp, especially when you only talk to these guys for 15, 20 minutes. But, he is a guy who it just seems like has the respect of everyone, and especially Michael Malone, who just absolutely loves him. And then, like you said, just kind of says all the right things, not just as in saying the couched answers, but like says things that are insightful that you go, oh, okay, I kind of get it. I kind of get it with him about what's going on. Some other little anecdotes. DeAndre Jordan was the one that organized the baseball outing. I know everybody was wondering, like, who. Somebody said it was Jeff and DeAndre. Jeff came in and was like, no, man, that was all DeAndre. He got everybody on the team custom jerseys made. Like, it wasn't just that he's like, hey, we should go to a baseball game. He organized it in a way that would make it sort of extra communal. And then Bruce Brown yesterday played golf with who? DeAndre Jordan. So DeAndre Jordan, another, I would say, early winner of training camp, just in that it's funny because we joke about it. He must be the best glue guy in history. I think he is. I think he is. He looks like the best glue guy in history.
And the good vibes will absolutely last until the first game when he's a -7.
Yeah,
and
well,
then
maybe.
it will absolutely end.
Last anecdote though for you that I think
Go ahead.
people want to hear. I was told, in addition to the first unit, just steamrolling and the workouts or in the open runs, that Michael Porter's been making everything. So I know there haven't been a ton of like Michael Porter anecdotes. We're going to talk to him today. I believe him and Bones will be the guys we speak to today. But I'm told that his shot making right back to where it was.
6'10", 50, 40, 90. Nothing to be done with him. Like, he's a fascinating player, and it's fascinating to cover. It'll be and as always with him, it's gonna be honestly, his entire career has been fascinating. Just ups and downs, everything. Michael Porter Jr. has had the opposite of an unremarkable career so far.
It's very remarkable.
It's very remarkable. Let's take a break. We'll come back and we'll talk about a few things that Adam has learned about how Calvin Booth is reshaping the Nuggets organization and what he thinks it should be. We'll do that when we come back on Locked On Nuggets. But first, my friends, I have to tell you about our sponsor for today as I pull up the overlay, BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for football betting info this season. You get all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game you can find. Who's got 2 thumbs and bet the Denver Broncos yesterday? This guy. Who's got 2 thumbs and bet them to not only cover but win on the road versus the Las Vegas Raiders? This guy. Who also bet an alternate line for them to win by at least 3? This guy. Let's ride, Broncos country. I want those 5-star reviews. I am willing to do anything for the 5-star reviews. As always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all the sports wagering information, live betting, and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. Fast and easiest way. Check in all your favorite games and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. One more thing. Broncos win this weekend. Chargers lose to the Jags, Chargers lose, which is entirely possible because of how Herbert is. And the Chiefs lose to the Buccaneers, which is the lines moved from Chiefs -3 all the way to Bucks -1. Everyone's expecting the Chiefs to lose. Broncos could be leading the division. Can you imagine? Broncos leading the division. They could finally win the AFC West. How crazy is that? Head to betonline.net or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets, thanks for joining us and making us part of your day. Appreciate you guys being with us on a Friday, including all the folks in YouTube. But make sure to turn on notifications and hit subscribe. It's the best way for you to support the show, is give us those sweet, sweet YouTube subscriptions. We're behind a lot of the other shows. It makes me mad. Please hit the subscribe button for Locked On Nuggets. So, Adam, you've been doing some schmoozing, been doing some connecting, been doing some sidling, been doing some capital J journalism.
Sure. Yeah.
Hanging out with the various members of the Nuggets front office structure. And we were talking before the show, and you feel like you had some things that were interesting to share with the audience, and I'd love to hear them.
I mean, it's one of the real values of training camp. It's like summer league, where a lot of this is because access is so limited to the team. Although today, as I mentioned, I think we're going to get a good extended look at open runs, meaning the 5-on-5 portion of practice today, which should be great. So we should have some great reports for you after that. But, it's also a chance to talk to some of the new members of the front office that if people don't know this, the scouting department, which by the way has expanded under Calvin Booth, the front office is getting bigger. And that's by design. Tim Conley liked a small, tighter group. Calvin kind of putting people like, hey, you're going to be in charge of these things, this thing, and this thing, and kind of segmenting it. They spend a lot of their year. In fact, very few of them actually live in Colorado. You got guys like Rafael, who's in Europe all year. So he's only in Colorado for certain pockets throughout the year. But you get everybody kind of assembles at training camp, comes together. The whole organization kind of comes together, and you get a chance to kind of talk and meet guys and say, hey, tell me about your role, tell me about your perspective, tell me about this or that. And so I say that to say that my perspective now on what Calvin Booth is trying to do on the front office is just more educated than what it was a week ago. First of all, they brought in a new director of scouting in Drew Nichols, who, if you don't know, this is what's fun is I went to Serbia and I did a bunch of these, learning about a bunch of the EuroLeague legends and different things. Drew Nichols is something of a EuroLeague legend. He played for several great coaches over the course of his career, including Jelko Obradovic, who's one of the probably widely respected as the greatest coach in EuroLeague history, Ettore Messina, David Blatt. So he's played for like a very interesting group of different coaches. He's won 2 EuroLeague titles. He has a EuroLeague scoring title. So he was a very, very good player in Europe. But the reason it's interesting, him coming up now to be director of scouting, Cal knew him from Minnesota as a scout over there. And what's interesting about him is that he, like Rafael, who's been doing this for a long time and opens a lot of doors because of his connections and how long he's been in here. Drew Nichols is a legend in EuroLeague, and he opens a lot of doors as well. So I feel like Denver, it's funny, you think about Tim Conley, and he's kind of been known for bringing in Jokic and Wancho and having some of these European players. I kind of feel like Denver might have actually expanded their European reach under Calvin Booth because of adding Drew Nichols and because of an emphasis that they're sort of putting on those different things. So that's my first takeaway.
Yeah, Nicholas worked under the Celtics. Was with the Sixers as well, and the Wolves. I don't know ask him if he knows a guy I know with the Wolves. So
I'll tell you this. I don't know that he'll be in Denver for long. Like you said, sure. He's a very fast riser, in part because of his pedigree, obviously having being a legend in Europe. But also, I would not be surprised if he is a guy that 2-3 years from now has his own GM job.
So I would say that I think one of the big takeaways here is, and I think this is important, right, is that there's not a lot of resting on laurels or not shaking things up or standing pat from Calvin. Like, he's really reshaped things aggressively. And we got that sense early on. Like, that was after Connolly left. One of our immediate takeaways on the show was, yeah, like there's a lot of plans to be aggressive here. And it sounds like that's really been the results that they've that's what they've come away with after the summer of the hires and the reshifting of things, right?
Right. No question about it. Somebody asks is there anybody expanding into Africa yet? Isn't NBA Africa expanding? Yes, although very, very slowly. A lot of this it's not just about can scouting expand, it's can the infrastructure expand that helps develop these these prospects from a young age, and it's just not there in Africa. That is a issue that is beyond the scope of just like, can we build some gyms? It's can you build the proper infrastructure for education and everything else? So that's going to be a long time. But I will say Denver has Dechi Fall, who I hope, to do an interview in some capacity here before too long. But Dechi Fall, who's Senegalese, and he is sort of the Denver scout through Africa as well as through Europe and other places. But he's sort of like one of their main reps in that capacity. But Drew Nichols, I'm very excited for. And again, what's interesting is I'm speaking in very broad strokes here. I think Tim had a very small group where everybody kind of touched all aspects of the business and maybe had this guy specialize. And I feel like Calvin is maybe compartmentalizing things a little bit more, saying like, hey, we have a group who are experts in this. You're going to have this arm of European scouting. You're going to have this arm of American scouting. You're going to have this arm of intelligence gathering, by the way. The people that were brought in that are sort of like just very connected to what's going on. A large part of being a front office member is, do you have the right intel? Do you see around the corner? Like, a lot of times, I would say often when trades are made in the NBA, there's like a reason that pushed it that's almost beyond or at least adjacent to basketball. Like, hey, man, these two guys are just not getting along, and we got to find a trade for this guy. We got to pick between the two. And having the proper intel around the league to say, like, who might be available? This guy. Nobody realizes, why is he available? Well, because he didn't get along with the coach, or because of this or that or this reason. And it just kind of gives you that intel. And, that's something that I think before was a collective group. And I think now under Calvin, they're putting some people in place that are like, hey, these are our intelligence gatherers, an intelligence agency within the front office that I think is kind of interesting. So it's much more direct.
One thing I was surprised to learn is that these organizations, they actually have databases where they collect this information. I would have thought like you don't want it on paper for any reason, just because it's all like it's not sensitive. It's not like it's scandalous in most cases, but I was surprised. Like this is a thing that I've just found from talking to people is that there are repositories so that every member of the organization can kind of reach that information as a network in terms of like how as they're exchanging information to get more. That's kind of the interesting thing. I don't know if the Nuggets have that. They may already have that capacity. I would imagine so, but I don't know that for sure. But it is kind of like an interesting thing of how intelligent. I will say that some of the smartest organizations, they really do believe that these bits of information wind up being extremely important for not only trade information and free agent info in terms of this guy's unhappy or he's really close with so-and-so, but also from the perspective of identifying which teams are looking at what. So
right.
There's a real value there. Well, I'm going to take a break and we'll come back and we'll talk about Andre Miller, who spoke with the media, the new coach of the Grand Rapids Gold. We'll do that when we come back on Locked On Nuggets. Final segment here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us, making us part of your Friday. Appreciate it. Looking forward to the weekend. So we got what, 2-3 weekends, maybe 2 weekends? We got 2. Oh my God, we have 2 weekends before basketball starts. Oh my God. So much stuff to do. Andre Miller, Nuggets legend, absolute legend in terms of like longtime player, was very well loved by fans in his time here. Like I was really surprised when I got to Denver and found out how much people love Andre Miller. New coach of the Grand Rapids Gold. He spoke with media yesterday after running practice. What were your thoughts on Andre Miller speaking with the media?
Loved it. I mean, you know me, Andre Miller is one of my favorites, and I never really spoken to him before. To get to interview him was a real sort of treat for me personally, but it was even a treat just because I thought he was so great. I mean, like it's funny. I have no idea. He's never been a head coach other than like at the AAU level. He's been doing like high school stuff. So to say you feel confident in that he'll be a good one, it seems a little bit absurd. But after talking to him, I think he's going to be a great. I think he's going to be a great head coach. Obviously, he has an incredible basketball IQ. But I just felt like he was a great communicator, even in the scrum, like very clear, clear of thought in what he believes his job is and what he wants to accomplish and how he wants to go about accomplishing it. But I'll start here, Matt. How many people in the Nuggets organization do you think Andre Miller, who, by the way, he said he considers himself a Nugget because he spent most of his career in Denver. He's been in a lot of places, but in Denver more than anywhere else. How many people do you think in the organization he has kept in touch with?
10?
1.
Wow.
Sparky Gonzalez.
That's Sparky.
The equipment manager. And I say this to say, man, this has been one of my big criticisms of the Nuggets organization is that we hear this over and over and over again, like, hey, you're a Nuggets legend. How have the Nuggets treated you since retiring? Oh, I haven't talked to anyone. They've never called or emailed.
Never called.
What the hell is going on over here? Well, Andre Miller fits that category, and it's sad to hear that, basically only the equipment manager stays in touch. Nonetheless, he's a coach now, and he's kind of brought back into it. And I think he's very excited about that. Like there was a big part of him that was like, I'm glad it's in Denver that I get this opportunity. The story though, Matt, I'll tell you the story, and it's funny. How did he become the coach of the Grand Rapids Gold? Well,
I love this. I've heard this and it's great. It's great.
He went to Summer League and he wanted to get some tickets. He was with an AAU team and he wanted to get some tickets to Summer League games. So they wanted to watch it. And he hit up Calvin Booth, who he had known. I can't remember. Maybe it was from Philadelphia. And Calvin Booth hooked him up. While he was there, he met Jason Terry, met with Jason Terry. And Jason Terry was like, hey, man, this organization has been great. This route for me has been great. I learned a lot. I grew a lot. And this was a really good path to kind of they have mutual goals, so to speak, Jason Terry and Andre Miller. And so he kind of said this has been great. And then Jason Terry, I think after that, moved on from the Gold. And so when Andre Miller called to thank Calvin Booth for the tickets, they got to talking and he's like, hey, I see that there's a vacancy there. And they get to talking, hey, would you be interested, this or that? All right, let's put you through the process, the interview process. And then he got the job. So kind of, I don't want to say by accident, but extremely casually. That's how he arrived as being the Grand Rapids Gold coach.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there's a valid line of thought of like, really, like that's how the coach comes about. I'll just tell you, like that's how a lot of the G League stuff happens, and
Yeah.
I think that's okay. I think hopefully over time, and a lot of this is also, I think, based off of the fact of how Malone has chosen his coaches. Like Malone's assistant coaches are all assistant lifers or former head coaches, right? The Rockets have gone the route of like they'll hire a guy and get him in with the team, and then they will send him to work with RGV and have him do work there. The Spurs have done the same thing where it's all part of like one cohesive system. And do I think that that's optimal? A little bit. I think I probably lean towards that being optimal. This is also the second year of the Gold's existence. And I also think that there is value, I think, in the Nuggets, honestly, instead of growing their own talent, of building relationships through the Gold, of expanding the tree, of having more guys that they're in like the Nuggets family. I think that that's like a good thing for them to do, and it should be pretty successful. And look, Miller's going to have this is a key role, at least for this year. We'll see if he likes the job and if he continues to hold it. But like Peyton Watson is a like it's a project. They have other guys that are going to be in the G League. They're going to need the G League more over the next 10 years. And so how they treat this franchise after it took so long for them to get one is going to be meaningful. I do think that hiring a guy that understands NBA life and understands basketball and is just like a basketball lifer as much as Andre Miller is a really good thing. Like I think that's.
And by the way, Calvin Booth's now being like he's going to use the Gold differently than Tim Connelly. That's part of a general manager's job, isn't deciding, hey, how are we going to work back and forth between these two places? So Calvin Booth will probably, even though Tim Connelly only had this for 1 year, Calvin Booth will probably put his stamp on it. He did say that the mental part of coaching is going to be his forte, meaning like asked about where his emphasis will be, it'll be on trying to get these guys to be professionals, mentally tough. He's like, in this league, really, it's just about mental toughness. Do you have that? Obviously, Andre Miller, one of the toughest dudes in the NBA during his playing career. So I kind of like that. And even talking about Peyton Watson specifically, that approach to him, trying to get him to understand what it means to be a professional, how to go about your business, and then how to handle the ups and downs of being in the league. He felt like was going to be a big part of it. So I'm very excited for him. For Andre Miller, I would bet, I would bet on him being a good coach. I'm sure with anything, there's ups and downs, but being in the G League, a good start for him. But I just walked away from that thinking, what a great communicator. Obviously a great basketball IQ and a guy that seems very, it's a weird thing to say, calm and prepared for this job. Sometimes you get a sense of that. And you want to see like, are they like amped up? Are they this or that? Like he just seemed very steady. Like, okay, here we go. We're getting started and I know exactly what I want to do. And here's how we're going to do it. It's going to be great. Lastly, he was asked about Jokic. He loves Jokic, unsurprisingly. He said if he was a 7-footer, he would try to be Jokic.
Yeah. They have approximately the same size of bottom. So it makes sense that they like each other. That was my thing with Andre Miller was like his rump could move any forward in the league. Like it was incredible. His post strength was amazing. Andre Miller. Before we get out of here, real quick note. Will Barton did not play in the Wizards preseason opener versus the Warriors this morning in Tokyo. Monte Morris did play 18 minutes, 4 of 10 from the field, 9 points, 5 assists. Let's see. 2 turnovers for Monte. Got to clean it up. 5 turnovers, 5 assists, 2 turnovers. Got to clean it up, Monte. But Monte did start for the Washington Wizards and is expected to be the starting point guard for Washington. I don't want to forget about the former Nuggets. Will did not play, listed DNP illness. I don't have any idea of what's going on there, but it should be fine. Haven't heard anything too bad to the contrary. More NBA preseason, by the way, continuing over the weekend. Like preseason is here. Like tonight, Maccabi Anana, I think is how that's pronounced. I'm not sure. That team does play the Clippers. The Grizzlies and the Bucks play tomorrow, as well as another game between the Warriors and Wizards. And when's the Nuggets' first game is Tuesday? Monday.
Monday.
Oh my God, we have a game Monday in Denver.
Yeah.
Oh my!
The game Monday. I'll see you at the arena. And by the way, like I said, they scrimmage tonight in front of media, or today, I should say, in front of media, actually in a couple hours. So you'll want to check out, if you're on Twitter, you'll want to check out my Twitter feed, because I'll be posting some things there and just kind of sharing some updates. I'm excited. So much of training camp is just talking to guys, which is helpful. It's useful, but actually getting our first look at these guys playing, I'm pretty excited for it.
Yeah, it should be. I'm excited to hear from that. You from that. We'll see whether we do that episode on Monday or over the weekend. We'll talk as you journey back to the Mile High City this weekend. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll talk to you guys again next time. Hope you have a great weekend. Hit the like, review, subscribe. Give us the 5-star reviews. I've done my part. I've done the thing. Come on. I've been good. Help me. Give me the 5-star reviews. Have yourselves a great week.